Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Kia ora, Bolt fam. It's the Director. Chargers fans, training camp just around the corner, right? And with it are going to be those juicy narratives of camp battles. There's going to be positions on the Chargers that may need some help, and finding some good news within the camp process would go a long way to putting our minds at ease. Before we really get into it, though, guys, can I just say something, dudes? My wife and I starting a food truck, right? Mainly my wife's dream. We're trying to make that happen. We're in the final process of it, and with that is putting on what's called the wrap. It's basically the graphics that go on the outside. Think of it as like a giant sticker you place on the outside of a truck. My God, dudes, that is some of the most back-breaking work I've ever done in my life. I'm excited. I am very much so wiped out, but you know what? The 4th of July has come and gone, and it's really around this time of year that I start getting really amped about the football season returning. So as wiped out as we are, I got to talk some Chargers football today, man. So camp battles. Time to talk about what developments that we hope to see. The roster is, as a matter of fact, looking maybe as strong as ever, but there are, again, like we're talking about, positions that we're hoping to see some improvements in. And of course, right tackle definitely leads the charge in terms of positions that we're hoping to see improvement in. But there are going to be some other positions that I've been asked about, who's going to be winning the starting job here and there. So today we're going to really dive deep into camp battles. Which one of these players do we think are going to make the cut into the 53-man roster? And who do we hope to see the most improvement on in training camp? Now, before we do get started, guys, question in the comments like we always do. Every single season we see a camp battle that kind of blows us away, right? We did not see it coming. So who is the player that you did not see coming that may end up winning a camp battle? This can come down to anything between like running backs, wide receivers, cornerbacks. Let me know in the comment section below. And doesn't have to be like a starting position like cornerback 2 or cornerback 3. It can also be somebody jumping up the depth chart via depth. Now, before we do kick off, guys, hit us up with a like and sub. If you do enjoy this Chargers content, the small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into this one. Lights, camera, action. Yes, I've been reading the comments. We want to see action return. It will be returning, but I forgot to put it in the animation when I put it in. So as soon as I get some time, we're going to get that addressed. Now, camp battles. Again, we had a long day already today, so we're going to kick it today, right? A little less formal. I don't have a ton of notes put down in order to make it really clean and smooth. We're going to kick it very casual today and talk about some of the camp battles that at least have been on my mind, especially camp battles as well that I've been asked about. I've been getting a lot of messages, a lot of comments asking about certain players and positions, so we're going to kind of go over it on the surface. As a matter of fact, you could almost call this camp battles round 1 in terms of videos, because I do want to address this one more time as we get into training camp in order to kind of, hyper focus our attention on some of these players that may be ascending. So let's start off with the right tackle position, right? Well, we got Trey Pipkins, Storm Norton being the 2 main guys there in the fold, but I do also kind of want to mention a little bit about Matt Filer and Jamari Sawyer. These are guys that definitely we've talked about in the past that are kind of in the mix, right? Now, let's start here with Storm Norton. We're seeing Trey Pipkins on the screen right now, but let's talk about Storm Norton, right? He was the starter for most of the season last year in relief of Brian Bulaga, who went down pretty early. Storm Norton, to me, he's going to have one of the more dramatic transformations that we've seen at the positions in a very long time in order to really come into contention for this spot. Because what did he allow last season, right? Something like 60 pressures, 9 sacks. He was well below average in pretty much every stat that you're going to find when it comes to the tackle position. So to me, Storm Norton, I will say valiant effort. He was really good in run blocking. He did have his moments, but for the most part, man, we just cannot go into the season with something like that again. Justin Herbert is the heart and soul of this offense. Likely the reason we were a top 5 offense last season. We cannot put his health in jeopardy by rolling out with Storm Norton. At least not on the surface, right? That cannot be the plan right now going into 2022. So who else we got? Trey Pipkins, right? And Trey Pipkins kind of been, for the offensive line position, Trey Pipkins kind of been a hot topic of conversation among Chargers fans the last couple of weeks because he is on the rise. I know a lot of us, let's say a year ago, last year in 2021, right? There's no way on earth or heaven we would have trusted this man to protect Justin Herbert on the right side. However, the narrative has kind of changed. It's kind of evolved since then, right? He did get some playing time last year, which was kind of the first step in changing this opinion and this view on Trey Pipkins. He showed pretty big potential, right? In his starting, or in the snaps that he was able to prove what he's got, his growth in the last couple of seasons, being drafted, right? I think in the 3rd round as a project player. Those snaps last year were kind of the first steps into winning back the Chargers' trust, or at least winning it, period, because this is kind of the first time we've seen him step up and really be effective and be trustworthy at this point, right? And after these last 3 years, it does feel like this project player has begun to maybe pan out a little bit. But I think the biggest reason why people have been pretty, let's say, optimistic on the chances that Trey Pipkins does have, let's say, a bounce back season or a breakout season or a season that proves that he's trustworthy of Justin Herbert's protection on the right side has been his off-season process, right? In the way that he's been training and preparing himself to go after that starting spot in 2022. He's been working out with guys like Rashawn Slater. Chargers fans know and love him. He's been fantastic. Teron Armstead, I think he's now a Miami Dolphin, but formerly of the New Orleans Saints. And these guys, man, very, very highly touted, tackles in the league, but it goes even beyond that. I think it's Mayweather or Mayfield or something like that. There's a special trainer out there that was really hyping up Rashawn Slater in his rookie season in the process of how he goes about his offseason. And you could really see it pay off when coming into the 2021 season last year in terms of translating into the league. Now, you kind of bundle that in with the optimism we saw in the limited snaps at right tackle for Trey Pipkins last season, along with those, training regimens. I think it does offer a little bit of optimism that he can step into that role and at least be serviceable. We're not asking Trey Pipkins to be the starting right tackle as far for the Chargers as far as like an elite dude, right? He doesn't need to be a top 5, top 10 right tackle in the league. Heck, I would take top 16, right? The dude just needs to be average. And I think that's a very realistic request of Trey Pipkins. I think from what we've seen and what we've heard now in the offseason, I think the chances are really high that he can perform at least at that level. And because of the talent that he's got around him, he's going to be playing next to Zion Johnson. Besides that, you got Corey Linsley, and then now the rest of the line looks absolutely fantastic. I think an average right tackle will do the trick. So I'm going to put a score next to these players too, right? Out of 10, in terms of their likeliness to win the starting position. Storm Norton previously, I'm going to give a 1 out of 10. I think at most he makes the roster as a swing tackle, same as last year, the backup, right? Trey Pipkins, on the other hand, I'm going to give him a solid 7 or 8. Let's say 7.5, right? 7.5 out of 10 to win that starting position this season. But the right tackle narrative does not end there, actually. It's a little bit more deep than we all kind of see on the surface. And again, it has more to do with speculation than it does things that we've really heard, right? Matt Filer was a huge player of conversation for us, at least towards the end of last season, because we were like, man, this Storm Norton guy, he's letting everybody through. He's gotten destroyed by Max Crosby and all these other guys. Is it time that we maybe consider Matt Filer making the move to right tackle? We have got to protect Justin Herbert. And ultimately, that really didn't happen. But what does that mean for this year, right? Does it mean that we're not going to see a move for Matt Filer this season either? I don't know if we are, but you could almost consider Filer like the ultimate plan B in this situation, right? The team knows that Matt Filer can play right tackle, and at a pretty high level too. With the Pittsburgh Steelers, he was definitely above average when it came to his talent at the right tackle position. He's got the size, he's got the strength, he's got the archetype. He's a great right tackle option for the Chargers, but at this point they do prefer to keep him at guard because, let's be honest, the chemistry that's been formed on that left side next to Rashawn Slater, Corey Linsley, has been very promising. He had a very good season last year, very strong candidate for the Pro Bowl. Now, that doesn't mean that the move cannot happen, right? We cannot dismiss the idea of moving him to the outside. At this moment, I think he's still the best right tackle on the roster, but in terms of how the roster is built right now, he's likely going to stay at left guard. But I think a big, I guess, contributing factor in whether or not he does move is going to be Jamari Sawyer. I kind of wish I put more slides in here to kind of, highlight the guys that we are talking about at these positions. Jamari Sawyer, taken very late in the draft this past season, right? Considered a big steal by a lot of people. This guy's got starting potential in his rookie year, and the Chargers happened to snag him very, very late. And yes, I've been asked a lot about Sawyer in terms of can he play right tackle. Yes, he can. He played the outside quite a bit in his time in college. The only issue is that he is a bit undersized, right? I don't think this really stopped the Chargers from selecting a guy like Rashawn Slater, and yes, that panned out very well, but I don't think that he does play right tackle. The reason that we're bringing him up is because I feel like Jamari Sawyer can definitely prove he's a more than capable guard in the league right away in his rookie season. I think something to watch in camp is how Jamari Sawyer uses those opportunities and those reps to prove to the coaching staff that he's ready now. And I'm one of those guys that definitely believes that he's very ready now. I'm also a believer in Brandon Hymus if they don't want to roll in with a rookie. And what these narratives kind of tell us, or what they could potentially tell us, is that the Chargers have a guy that they trust in Matt Filer's spot on the roster, which is left guard. If they've got a guy like Sawyer or Brandon Hymus that can play that position very well, maybe not as well, but very, very well, it could earn enough trust for the Chargers to move Matt Filer to right tackle. That could certainly happen. So I'm going to say Matt Filer, as of right now, has like a 2 out of or 3 out of 10 chance in making the move to right tackle. A lot of it does depend on Jamari Sawyer. Sawyer, to me, has got a 2 out of 10 chance to play right tackle and a 4 out of 10 chance to play left guard. Okay? So my prediction for the right tackle position, again, very important position, probably the longest segment on this entire video, is that Trey Pipkins is going to win the starting job at right tackle. But Filer is also a very strong possibility that we cannot dismiss depending on how Sawyer or maybe even Brandon Hymus pans out. Okay, so that's the right tackle position. Probably the most important one to keep an eye on during training camp, but it's one that I definitely wanted to spend the most time on. Now, next up, I have been asked a lot about the running back position as well. This features guys like Joshua Kelly, Larry Roundtree, and now Isaiah Spiller. We also got a couple undrafted free agents in the mix in Letty Brown and Kevin Marks, okay? Now, first off, let's start with Joshua Kelly. Right now on the screen, you're seeing an Isaiah Spiller. Joshua Kelly first, right? You guys kind of know where I stand with Joshua Kelly. I feel the dude is probably likely fumbled away his opportunity in the NFL. And this doesn't mean that I don't see potential in Joshua Kelly. I do. As a matter of fact, I've seen some great plays by him in his career so far. But it really feels like when he was handed the ball, when it really counts, goal line carries, we're down by like 3 points, we're driving back into the game. There's been times where those fumbles, those turnovers, have literally lost us games. I think there's a chance he could bounce back this season, but I think those chances are low, especially with the stiff competition we're seeing on the roster now. So I'm going to give Joshua Kelly a 3 out of 10 shot. Larry Roundtree, on the other hand, fresh face to the Chargers last season. He's coming into his second season this year. I will admit his rookie year was kind of rough, right? We did not see a lot in terms of, promising growth, but it was his rookie season, right? I do think the only thing that complicates his situation is that the competition's a bit stiff, right? I think these undrafted free agents are looking pretty nice. So I think with Larry Roundtree, we're still in year 2, right? I don't think they cut him. At least I don't think his chances are super high. It's still possible, but I do think that just because they want to see, what he can do in the second season, I don't know if he's gonna be moved on from in terms of the 53. Still, I'm gonna give him a 6 out of 10 chance. So now we can move on to Isaiah Spiller, right? And a lot of you guys know how I view Isaiah Spiller. I'm very, very high on this rookie to the Chargers. Once again, just like Jamari Sawyer, another steal in the draft. A lot of people had this guy going 2nd or 3rd round. Chargers got him in the 4th. And I do think that his talent is going to be utilized very, very early. Big point of emphasis for the Chargers last season was finding a running back, too. They got their guy, in my opinion, Isaiah Spiller. He's got, super nice upside. I feel like he's a great scheme fit, and he's going to blend in very well with this offensive line that has kind of transformed over the last couple of seasons, especially with Zion Johnson now in improving that power run. So Spiller's going to score at a 10 out of 10. He's going to be just fine in this system. And then finally, the undrafted free agents, which I've been getting a lot of questions about. Letty Brown and Kevin Marks Jr., right? I've heard great things about both these players. And we know the Chargers historically have been great at identifying undrafted talent. Hence why we've got Austin Eckler as our RB1 right now. The dude was undrafted, and he's absolutely insane. 20 touchdowns last season. Are you kidding me? Now, do I see that potential in one of these two dudes, in Letty Brown, Kevin Marks? Probably not. But again, I think one of these guys could potentially make the roster. Again, it's a bit threatening to Larry Roundtree. That's maybe the camp battle to look out for, the undrafted guys versus Larry Roundtree. I'm going to lean Letty Brown at this point, but both of them do look very promising. So I'm going to give that a score of like 3 or 4 out of 10. They're still undrafted, but I'm hearing some pretty good things about it. So my prediction with the running back position, Spiller obviously is going to win the running back 2 role. I think Kelly gets cut this offseason. I think some talent is there, but the turnovers are going to cost him, right? I feel like Roundtree stays, and then maybe one of the undrafted free agents make the roster. Again, I'm going to lean Letty Brown. Next up, we're going to talk a little bit about the fullback position. Won't spend too much time on this one, as we did just do a full video on Xander Horvath. Gabe Neighbors versus Xander Horvath. Who's going to win the job? Well, short and simple, I believe it's going to be Xander Horvath, right? I think he's going to win. The Chargers drafted him in the 7th round. They've seen something good in him. Then you take a look at his RAS score. You take a look at his highlights. You take a look at what he can offer from the position. He's insane. He's absolutely insane. And I feel like the Chargers are looking to improve their power run. Horvath could be a key to that. That doesn't mean that Gabe Neighbors is a pushover either, though. This is why we're going to be watching it very closely in camp. He's got more experience. He's buddies, with Justin Herbert. But ultimately, he's been underutilized. And I think he's been underutilized for a reason. Maybe Horvath fits the description a little bit better in terms of what the Chargers want out of a fullback. And maybe that leads to a bit more snaps, a bit more opportunity for a guy like Xander. So again, my prediction, Horvath wins the job, 10 out of 10. I think that he's definitely in the cards and in the plans for the Chargers this season. Now let's move on to wide receiver. And this is a position where I don't know if I have as many questions, but I'm getting a lot of questions about it. And that's completely fair, right? Because the Chargers were definitely in the conversation in terms of adding another wide receiver, more specifically, a speedy wide receiver this last offseason. We wanted a guy that could really elevate Justin Herbert's game in terms of targets over the top. He's got one of the best arms in the NFL. But the two guys that mainly get brought up to me are Josh Palmer and Jalen Guyton. And Jalen Guyton could arguably be that guy, right? He's definitely the guy right now. But if he improves this offseason, he could transform into a player that's even better than a lot of the options that we were talking about over free agency and in the draft. But we're going to start now here with Josh Palmer first, right? Josh Palmer, number 5. Now, Palmer, I feel, among Chargers fans at least, is definitely one of those guys that is being viewed as a breakout candidate for 2022, right? The dude showed some great flashes last season. His hands, his routes, everything very, very smooth. And I do think that Josh Palmer is going to get his fair share of targets, right? As of right now, I feel like Josh Palmer may be a safer target, especially in terms of moving the chains, in terms of making some big plays. Josh Palmer, to me, is the guy that could certainly make a huge leap in year 2. I think Chargers fans definitely know what can happen with a round 3 wide receiver similar to Keenan Allen. And I do think that Josh Palmer does carry a lot of those traits, and he does carry a lot of upside in terms of what he can offer his follow-up year. So I'm going to give him a score of 10 out of 10. I think Josh Palmer obviously going to be a big factor this season. But what about Jalen Guyton? And this is where maybe some of the questions come in, right? We've heard a lot of good things about Jalen Guyton this offseason. Brandon Staley really covets his speed. He feels like he's definitely been improving. As far as I was reading before as well, they're giving him some shots on special teams as well, right? In the return game. And they say they're very happy with what they see so far. Obviously, his speed is going to, boost that just a little bit. But Jalen Guyton, to me, even now being an off-season star, I think that he's going to, again, be very utilized this season, especially when wanting to burn the secondary. and he's going to get a score 8 out of 10 for me. So again, I won't spend too long on this, but my prediction is that both of these guys can maybe be considered the Chargers wide receiver 3. You just kind of swap them out depending on the situation, right? They bring different skills to the table. You're going to want to utilize them in different situations. I think Palmer, in the end, is going to edge out the season with more targets. I think he's the more, upside kind of wide receiver, all around, does it all, but just lacks the speed. But I don't think the Chargers are going to let Guyton go unused either. He's the key to unlocking Herbert's big arm. So I think we're going to see a healthy mix of both of them. So when it comes to a camp battle, I suppose, it's going to be a shared role. Wide receiver 3 is Jalen Guyton and Josh Palmer. Josh Palmer could edge it out a little bit in terms of targets, but I see these guys very equally right now. They just bring different skills to the table. All right. Now, next up is going to be a big name that, again, I think a lot of people have certainly understood and heard my opinion on, but it's one that I kind of want to not put to bed, but definitely reinforce a little bit. It's Jerry Tillery versus this man, Morgan Fox, right? Jerry Tillery, on the last year of his rookie deal, we've seen players really throw it all down on the line in their last years before, and they have made some improvements, right? He has a chance to make a big improvement in 2022. And honestly, I'm really hoping to see it. I'm not rooting against Jerry Tillery. I just think, from what we've saw so far, he's kind of been a liability at this point, specifically versus the run, right? We've seen some flashes in terms of, generating pressure from the interior. My goodness, versus the run, he might be one of the biggest reasons why we struggled so mightily last season. So for me, Jerry Tillery, he's going to get a 4 out of 10 shot here versus a guy like Morgan Fox, who we're seeing on the screen now, who may have been one of the biggest free agency steals of the offseason for the Chargers, right? He grades out extremely well as a pass rusher from the inside. But on top of that, he carries much higher upside as a run stopper, specifically when coached by Brandon Staley. Off the top of my head, I forget what team and what year, but he has been coached by Staley before. And in that season, he had a really good run stopping rate, right? Maybe not as good as other guys on the roster like Austin Johnson and Sebastian Joseph Day, but a lot better than a Jerry Tillery. And that's very important here, right? Because Jerry Tillery's role with the team as of right now is to maybe come in when the Chargers are trying to generate a little bit more heat. Do we want him out there defending the run? No, it's going to happen sometimes, but I think we would prefer the bigger guys like Austin Johnson, those defensive tackles right in the middle. Morgan Fox, however, I feel can be trusted in both situations, right? And that really does cover your bases. Let's say it's a draw, right? Where we're prepared for pass, where we got, a guy like Morgan Fox in there to get after the quarterback, and then he hands it off to the running back. I think Morgan Fox is way more capable in that situation than a guy like Jerry Tillery. So again, his upside's a lot higher. I honestly feel like he looks like everything we were hoping for from a Jerry Tillery when we drafted him. I'm going to give him a 7, maybe even 8 out of 10 chance to win this battle in camp. I'm hoping that Jerry Tillery can bounce back and really offer the Chargers something valuable this season, but Morgan Fox looks too good. And honestly, he might be one of the better signings by the Chargers this offseason if he really does pan out. So there you go. Morgan Fox, I think the dude's going to be a stud this season. Now, next up, another question that I get asked a lot is about the linebacker position. And I'm not going to lie, linebacker right now, especially after letting go of Kaiser White last season, right? It doesn't look great. Linebacker right now is what? Drew Tranquill, Kenneth Murray. Both guys, I would say Drew Tranquill definitely looks solid, right? Very serviceable. Kenneth Murray, down year. People may be a little bit worried about what he brings to the table right now. Well, we're going to talk about him first, but we also are going to go over Troy Reeder and Kyle Van Noy. But Kenneth Murray first, right? I'm going to be very stubborn in my opinion on this. I've heard a lot of people say, otherwise. And again, there's really no wrong opinions. We don't know what's happening yet, but I don't feel like a down year makes Kenneth Murray a washed player by a long shot, right? Especially given his circumstances. I've talked about this a lot. I just learned about a lot of this stuff, towards the end of last season. His brother passed away at the top of the season last year. That had to have been mentally damaging, right? That had to have been very hard to get through, and bless his soul, that's something nobody should have to, go through in their entire lives. That blows. And then on top of that, he had that injury, that nagging injury that really hampered him the entire season. So maybe having a year removed from that, finding peace, finding a way to heal, figuratively and, mentally and physically, I should say, I think Kenneth Murray is still a great player. He's fast, hard-hitting. He's young. He's going to be in the mix. So I'm going to give Kenneth Murray a 7 out of 10. I think he deserves a second shot, and a second shot with the fans. Not just the team, but with the fans, okay? Next up is Troy Reeder, right? Troy Reeder signed this offseason. I feel like it's a Brandon Staley, system signing. He wanted to get someone he trusts from the system that he brought in with the Rams. I think Reeder isn't terrible, but I don't think he's great either. I would almost view Reeder as like maybe a quality backup, right? Especially in the way that the Chargers are going to be rolling out their offense or their defense. More than likely, the Chargers are going to have more DBs on the field than most teams in the NFL, right? At least 5. And it feels like the linebacker position, this is why we allowed a guy like Kaiser to walk. We signed guys like Troy Reeder. We weren't looking for huge superstars. That kind of feels like the reason why. So I feel like Troy Reeder, 4 out of 10. He's not going to win a starting role, but he's going to be a decent backup. To wrap up the linebacker conversation real quick here, we do have Kyle Van Noy, who is another wild card in this situation, right? Especially for linebacker. He's going to be your hybrid guy, right? Edge/linebacker. And I do feel like it goes well beyond the backup role. I felt like Van Noy was a great depth signing in terms of, a guy behind Mack and Bosa, a guy behind Murray and Tranquil. I think he's going to be in the mix quite a bit this season. I think he's going to get significant playing time, let's say in relief of Bosa or Mack when they're off the field at any given moment, but also being utilized as an inside linebacker quite often. Because as of right now, he might be the best inside linebacker on the team, right? Why use the best inside linebacker at a depth position exclusively? No, I think you're going to get him mixed in quite often, right? I think he's going to see a ton of snaps. I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. But my prediction for linebacker, we see a ton of Kyle Van Noy at linebacker this season, right? He'll be in the mix with Drew Tranquil and Kenneth Murray. And I think it definitely speaks to the Chargers' forward thinking. They got themselves a quality backup edge. He's going to be in rotation. He's going to be playing that position a lot, but his versatility allows you to roll him out at inside linebacker quite a bit too. Van Noy may be one of the most underrated signings of the offseason, and the coaching staff absolutely loves him. I think he's going to be great this year. I also do think that Reeder's going to be in the mix, but the plans, but he pans out more as a trustworthy backup. And don't worry about Kenneth Murray yet. I want to see how he does in the first couple of weeks before we start, hitting the panic button a little bit. All right, to wrap up this video, we got a couple of defensive backs to go through. Again, kind of a quick segment here because I do feel very confident in some of these situations. Maybe my confidence in the cornerback situation is a little bit shocking, but we got the battle of Michael Davis versus Bryce Callahan, okay? And we do also have a couple of backup battles to keep an eye on this offseason. Tavon Campbell, Keemon Hall, Dean Leonard, Jasir Taylor. These guys are some to watch too. But Michael Davis and Bryce Callahan are going to be like the signature fight here, right? Now, Michael Davis, I think, has shown to be a very good cornerback in the past, right? The system changed last year, and maybe it threw everything for a loop for him. But Michael Davis is a big dude, 6'2". He's also extremely fast. He offers very valuable physical, attributes that the Chargers can definitely utilize. If he can bounce back in his second year in the system, I think he could certainly be in the mix as far as your cornerback 2 in some situations. Kind of interesting to see how the Chargers are going to roll out this year, because I view Bryce Callahan as a slot guy, right? You can roll him on the outside. You can even play him at safety if you need to, but he doesn't directly conflict with Michael Davis's role, but in a way he sort of does. If Bryce Callahan is your slot guy, that means Asante Samuel isn't. That means Asante Samuel is probably best used on the outside, where he also plays very well. But if Bryce Callahan is playing, let's say, safety or on the bench, then that opens up the door for Asante Samuel to play slot and Michael Davis to play on the outside. That's kind of what I'm getting at. So Michael Davis, to me, good shot at seeing some decent snaps this season. Do I think he wins the battle? I'm going to give him a score of 6 out of 10. Now, this guy, number 23, Bryce Callahan, is a different story. I feel like Bryce Callahan is being overlooked by a lot of people outside of Chargers fans, of course, because of his injury history. And yes, it's something to keep an eye on. We hope that he stays healthy. But when he is healthy, even at the ripe old age of 30-something now, he's been one of the better slot defenders in the league. And the Chargers, calling their slot position a star position or whatever, they do highly covet what that player can do. And I think this is not just, a formation change or whatever. You're not going to see a whole bunch of 3-4, and then all of a sudden you're going to see some nickel. I think at least 80% of the time you're going to see a nickel corner out there on the field. So you could almost consider Bryce Callahan a permanent, starting job on the Chargers, because he's going to see a lot of snaps if he is the slot guy. And I do think that's why he was brought on. The Chargers needed a guy they definitely trusted, both on the outside, now being Asante Samuel, and on the inside being Bryce Callahan. So if Callahan can stay healthy, here's my prediction. He gets an 8 out of 10 for me. My prediction is that Callahan wins the cornerback 3 role, the star position, the slot corner, whatever you want to call it. But Davis, in my opinion, is also going to be in the mix against speedy targets too. I feel like there's a good chance that Davis does bounce back this season. If he doesn't, the Chargers do have their bases covered, and they do have a quality backup in Michael Davis if something were to go down that way. Still, if he can prove he's taken a big step forward in camp, he could rotate in with Callahan to lower the chances of Callahan's re-injury. Because again, that's something to pay attention to. Brandon Staley, very, forward thinking in terms of keeping his players healthy. I do predict that we're going to see a bit of mix to help Callahan's chances at staying healthy as well. The other guys to mention too, Dean Leonard, Jasir Taylor. Of the backups, I feel like the one to keep an eye on in camp is Jasir Taylor. We've heard some good things about him this spring. I think that he could rise in the depth chart a little bit as a quality backup as time does go on. Now, lastly, to wrap up this video, we do have the safety position, and this is one that I've been thinking about a lot, and a lot of it does ride on JT Woods. This one is JT Woods versus Alohe Gilman, okay? Which is kind of crazy because I do think JT Woods fits better, let's say, at free safety with Nasir Adderley, but I think with what the Chargers want to do, he may actually pan out better at strong safety, same as Derwin James, and that's same as Alohe Gilman as well. And this is tricky because, again, we don't know how they're going to utilize JT Woods yet. Not truly. But this does put maybe Alohe Gilman, maybe Mark Webb in a bit of hot water, right? The team is going to want someone trustworthy to hold down the fort at deep safety while Derwin is moving around the field. That's kind of feeling like the big point of this offseason was to buy Derwin some freedom. Get this guy who plays every position at a ridiculous level the freedom to move around. And they need a guy back there that can, hold down the fort. And as much as I love Alohe Gilman, maybe he hasn't been the best in coverage. Maybe he gets a little lost out there. He's very solid. Don't get me wrong. He's a solid backup. But I do think he plays a decent run support role better than he does in coverage, right? He's got value. It's hard to imagine the team moving on from Alohe Gilman. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. But now we can talk about JT Woods, which is the reason why I'm thinking about this position at all. Right now, all we've got on number 22 is upside. That's all we got to go. That's all we got to go on right now is upside. I love his upside. If you guys have checked out his film and his highlights, my goodness, this dude is a playmaker. He looks incredible in the secondary. And to me, at least, he feels like the perfect man to hold down Derwin's spot while he plays elsewhere. Sure, he needs to improve in coverage. Sure, he needs to improve in tackling. But my goodness, I think he might be better in coverage than Alohe even right now. And that, to me, makes me feel like this battle is something worth monitoring. So I'm going to give JT Woods a score of 8 out of 10. He's a rookie, and that more reflects on how much playing time he gets in his rookie season because of the way that we need him right now. So my prediction is going to be both make the roster, but are used in different situations, right? Alohe's going to be in my opinion, a more run support situations where JT, I feel, is going to get some decent amount of playing time in deep coverage, especially when Derwin is being moved around. If JT can clean up those that tackling situation as well, right? I think his chances to play a bit closer to the line of scrimmage go up a lot too. He's physically what you want in that position. He just has to be more reliable that close to the line of scrimmage. And I'm talking box safety, I'm talking star, whatever you want to call it. I think JT, if he can really show that he's grown, he's ready for the pros, he might get more opportunities to do stuff like that. But at minimum, I think he's a bit of a better option out deep, if that makes sense, right? I think JT, dudes, he could be a big addition if he flashes in camp this season. Very excited to see how they mix him in. Well, guys, in the comment section below, let me know what you think. Let me know also to really get ready for the round 2 video, which is going to be coming around during camp once we start seeing things unfold. What camp battles that you want to see, and I'm going to get some written down. We're going to address a lot of them like I did today. I just kind of wrote down some of the players that I've been asked about a lot today. We're just kind of going off the cuff on this video anyway, but I do want to have a more organized video ready for the part 2 of this video in camp battles because it's going to be pretty important. when it comes to the offensive line, when it comes to the secondary, the defense, I think there's a lot of things that we have to keep our eye on when training camp gets kicked off here in the next couple of weeks. So let me know what you guys think. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. If you did enjoy this content, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. This has been The Director. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. JT Woods, man, I will be watching his career with great interest.